more Victorian books. So we are now climbing up from books 80 through 71 in the ranking. And these are books less that I disliked. I feel like we've mostly gotten through the books that I disliked, and now it's the books that I'm just kind of so on, not terribly enthusiastic, but not maybe as apprehensive. Or what's the word I'm looking, not as antagonistic as I maybe felt about the lowest down in the ranking. So book number 80 is Hard Times by Charles Dickens. This is a book that I buddy read with Tom at two Victobers ago. And this one, since it was a shorter Dickens, but it was a Dickens I didn't like as much, but didn't dislike it so much this time because it was short. So I didn't have to spend that long of a time with it. And it had some of the same themes and sort of similar characters as Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell. So it started out with a lot of potential and I was really enjoying it. And then it just was a little bit anticlimactic. It had, it was just in the delivery. So there were some aspects that I did enjoy about this, but it just kind of fell flat for me. And then ranked at number 79 is The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins. This is a very recent read that I read with my read-along Most Victorian Patreon book club. And it was interesting because there was a range of enjoyment of this book within the book club. And I think that if I had not read other Wilkie Collins, this might be higher up. But since I have read some Wilkie Collins that I have very much loved, this is lower down on the list. It has some interesting elements to it, but in a sense, it felt like it was caricaturing a sensation novel. It just felt like it was inserting these different plot points and kind of these cardboard cutout characters, and just this very formulaic sensation novel. So while it had its enjoyable points, it was one that didn't leave me feeling like I wanted to go back to read it. And then number 78 is The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. I'm a little sad this is as low down as it is because there is a lot of charm to this book, but you know what a character reader I am, and so it just had too much plot and not enough characterization. There are some really fun elements, where there is this princess and there are these goblins who live in caves nearby, near the castle, and she goes on an adventure. So it definitely intrigued me to read more of George MacDonald's fantasy. So The Light Princess, I really want to read sooner rather than later, and especially because George MacDonald is an author that C.S. Lewis and Tolkien very much looked up to. So it was a good introduction to George MacDonald, but maybe there will be some other George MacDonald books out there that I would enjoy more. And then coming in the ranking as number 77 is The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. So I did say earlier that I enjoy Sherlock Holmes best in short story format because those, to me, I can handle a puzzle mystery and really enjoy it in a short story format. I don't get battered over the head, with all of this information that is just too much to hold when you are the reader and you're not experiencing this in real time. I find, that's the format that I like this the most. And I do like it's got a lot of good things going for it with the suspense, and it just has such atmosphere, and Sherlock Holmes is incredibly iconic. So definitely I feel more positive when reading short story collections. So I would actually like to read more Sherlock Holmes short story collections. And then coming in at number 76 is The Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling. This is one that I definitely enjoyed. And it does sound, like it's down rather low, but there are just a lot of Victorian novels that I love. So that's why it is lower down. And I think if you enjoy the cartoon, you should definitely try the book. It does have a fair amount of differences in it, but I think if you like one, you can like the other. And I really enjoyed, it's not the typical Victorian novel parlor setting. It's different and it's interesting and very unique as a Victorian novel. And then number 75 is Barry Lyndon by William Makepeace Thackeray. So this is higher up than Vanity Fair. These are the only two Thackeray novels I have read. I don't know if I feel very motivated to read more by him, but this started out where I was very much enjoying it. It's narrated in first person, and I thought, oh my goodness, like, is this going to be another Jane Eyre? Because Jane Eyre is narrated in first person and so engaging because of that. But then it was just this whole tailspin of events, and I felt like I had whiplash because it went so quickly. He is a soldier, and so you see him, it starts out in Ireland, and then he is in France, and he is also, it was very off-putting to me. He was just such a like chauvinist pig. And I don't use that phrase a lot. That's the only term that I can think of to use for him. He's just commenting constantly on how overweight his wife is, and just ogling other women, and it was incredibly off-putting, that aspect of it. So all in all, I don't know, maybe it should have been ranked lower, but I think because the writing style itself was very gripping, that it is ranked where it is. But that being as gripping as it is makes me think maybe I should try more Thackeray and I would find one that I really liked. I don't know. And then number 74 is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So this past Victober, I ended up reading 3 Robert Louis Stevenson books, The Child's Gardener versus Treasure Island and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And this one, sadly, it did not end up being nearly as atmospheric or scary as I thought it was going to be. It just felt kind of, I felt a little bit like it, about it, like I did The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, where I knew all of these elements that were happening, and it's such an iconic Gothic novel, and just very atmospheric, and I just did not feel drawn in, which I was surprised because I loved Treasure Island so much. So it just did not really deliver for me. And I listened to the fabulous audiobook narrated by Richard Armitage. So kind of a disappointment, but the writing is good. I just wasn't nearly as drawn in as I was hoping I was going to be. But the concept of Jekyll and Hyde is an awesome, awesome concept. And then number 73 is The Rector by Margaret Oliphant. These are really just enjoyable domestic novels, and you're kind of similar to Anthony Trollope, I would say, but nothing that has really blown me away. So an enjoyable read, really fun if you want something, a lighter Victorian novel, kind of easy to dive into, but the memory of it hasn't really been a lasting memory. And then number 72 is The Half-Sisters by Geraldine Jewsbury. So I definitely enjoyed this more than Zoe, the only other Geraldine Jewsbury novel that I have read. That being said, though, the farther I get from this book, the more I kind of think it didn't really stick with me, and I don't know how blown away I was by it. It was very enjoyable when I was reading it. I buddy read this with Katie from Books and Things, and we were both saying this does not feel very Victorian. The language felt pretty modern, and it did have a really interesting plot where there are these two half-sisters, and one of them is up in the upper echelons of society, and the other, because of her parentage, is considered, lowborn. And seeing how their character is automatically interpreted based on the class that they are a part of. It's a really interesting concept, and I didn't feel at all bored while I read it, but just like I said, it didn't have much staying power. I would even be interested in potentially rereading it, and maybe it would end up higher on the rankings later on. Then, let's see, number 71. Yes, so the last one for this video is Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy. So this was, this to me is a very, and I think most Hardy fans would say it's a very unusual Hardy, because it is rather lighthearted, but it is so short, and I think it's the brevity of it that makes it not rank higher. But it does have his beautiful writing, and so I do really appreciate the writing in it. But when I compare it to the favorites of his, it is lower down. But I definitely did not dislike it. And the miniseries adaptation of this, though, makes it seem a lot more like cheery and rosy than it is, because the ending, it ends on kind of this sour note. It's not tragic at all, but it is very interesting. But I actually like that the miniseries is more cheery, because I find I can read more gloomy, bleak books and really enjoy them. But I can't watch things like that. For some reason, it impacts me in a different way when I'm watching. So that is the next 10 books, 80 through 71. I hope that you are enjoying these rankings, and let me know if you disagreed, and I will be back for another video soon. Bye.